Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
Is it possible that Pierre Poilievre is watching our show? It's called I'm Just Asking, because this new bill will be called the Stand on Guard law. Not only a great bill, but a great reference to the show. I hope when we come back in mere moments, we'll delve into this news conference yesterday. A couple of other interesting stories I have for you.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station, like the show, subscribe. We got to keep pushing our subscriptions up. Thank you so much for your support. Oh, the dying days of August. I know summer lasts until September 21st, but it seems like once you get past that Labor Day weekend, and it's pretty early this year, summer seems to be over. You can't wear the white pants anymore, and the dress code changes. And I love summer, and I'm praying for a summer in the future that's absolutely free of grievance. And that could happen. I want to show this little meme again because our producer put a lot of work into it, and it's wonderful. And of course, the forces of common sense, decency, and sanity won a huge victory this week when Cracker Barrel decided it wasn't going to change its logo to that horribly sanitized version from the woke CEO. And not only that, thanks to the good work of people like Robbie Starbuck, they took down their Pride page in their DEI instructions. But here's, I think, a large part of the reason. The U.S. has a president in Donald Trump who cares about these matters and has the guts to speak out about them. Yeah, that's a celebrating moment. You know, that reminds me of when they used to do ads and they would put actors or personalities in the ad with current day actors who were long gone, long deceased. And I mean, Humphrey Bogart was in one, and they tried that in the movie too. And like because the title escapes me right now, but it's a work of art. I really enjoyed that, and I can't say enough about it. Before we get into the Poilievre speech, this is very disturbing. So, if you haven't noticed, you know there's been a humanitarian crisis already in the Gaza Strip, with first of all leveling of everything that's standing, and what's been going on with the lack of food for the people there. Now it looks like it's going to be everybody's going to be eradicated. So this is, I think, should be of concern to everybody. And I mention that at the risk of offending some, but we're here to talk the truth. Now, I want to show you something else that I came across this morning. Thank you to Steve, who pointed this out to me. This is amazing. Bureaucrat booze bill costs taxpayers $51,000 a month. This is global affairs, thanks to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And it says working in government may be a thirsty profession, But a booze tab of $50,000 a month is definitely a problem. And the problem gets worse when the bill is sent to taxpayers. Global Affairs Canada bureaucrats spent more than $3.3 million on alcohol between January 2019 and May 2024, according to an access to information records obtained by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. What is coming? I could read this whole thing, but read it and weep. This is absolutely outrageous. The taxpayers are on the hook for the bar tab, and it doesn't say. This is obviously they're whining and dining themselves and guests at probably 4- and 5-star restaurants around the world. What's the price of a bottle of red wine in Paris, France? Well, probably about $60, $70 Canadian, easily. So that's where the bar tab is going. I mean, you'd think the government would at least say, look, we'll pay for your meals, but you want to booze it up, put it on your own tab. You're paid well enough as it is. Don't expect the taxpayer to pay for this. But of course, the taxpayer is paying for this. So kind of outrageous, wouldn't you say? Got another story here for you that I just noticed this morning. Can I share the screen? Yeah, here we go. This is from The Guardian, a newspaper media outlook I don't generally like, but I'll read it because I'd like to know what the other side is thinking. Here we go again. Beach returned to First Nation after 170 years following Canada legal battle. So this is a beach off Lake Huron in Ontario. And guess what? It's just been handed to another First Nation group. 170 years. A stretch of beach will be returned to a First Nations in Canada. 170 years after it was mistakenly omitted from its reserve. Now, this was contested by the local town. But the Canadian Supreme Court would not even hear the case. This is problematic. Just like what happened recently in BC with private property rights being overturned by the BC Supreme Court. Here we have the Supreme Court of Canada essentially agreeing with the entitlement of First Nations peoples to override private property rights, which are not guaranteed in the Canadian Constitution or the Charter of Rights, as anybody will probably tell you. In its application to the country's highest court, the town warned that a victory for the First Nation would, quote, risk sowing uncertainty and unpredictability at the core of Canada's system of private landholding, unquote. Same situation. Why am I flagging this? Because this is an indication that the Supreme Court is going to back up British Columbia when its appeal of the BC Supreme Court ruling in favor of First Nation entitlement comes before it. So this is very, very, very problematic, and I'm extremely concerned about this. All right, let's listen to this a little bit of this speech yesterday, where Pierre Poilievre again said he supports castle law, meaning you don't have to use so-called reasonable force. Use whatever force is necessary to eject a home intruder who has come there to harm you or your family or to steal your property. You have a right to defend yourself. And he's calling this, I love it, the stand on guard law. Like I say, is he watching this show? Because we've certainly been supporting that. And Pierre Poilievre also touches on other issues that we've been talking about specifically on this show. Now, I saw a lot of hyperbole about Pierre Poilievre overnight in terms of, in terms of this is the greatest speech he's ever delivered, and he's on fire. He's talking like a conservative. Yes, that's how he's supposed to talk. And he's talking to the grassroots because, as I pointed out to everybody over the last 3 months, he's not running for prime minister right now. He's running to preserve his leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada and his soon-to-be position of official opposition leader in the House of Commons. As soon as he takes the oath for the seat in Battle River, Crowfoot, he automatically becomes the leader of official opposition again. So he's talking like a conservative. Let's listen to some of this, because this is good, plain, common sense talk.
Your home is your castle. Your home is your castle. And you have the right to defend your family in your home. And right now, unfortunately, that is not the case. You know, our purpose as conservatives is to bring back a country where hard work gets you a beautiful house on a safe street under our proud flag. That when you come home and put the key in the door and you turn it, you're filled with peace, knowing that you can leave all of the day's troubles behind. That your biggest problem will be how you get the kids to eat all of their dinner, finish their homework, and get to bed on time. I confess that we fail on the last one regularly in the Poilievre household, but these are the kinds of problems that we all want to have. Unfortunately, there are bigger problems that people face after 10 years of disastrous Liberal government that has driven costs, crime, immigration, and employment through the roof. People worry. They worry that they can't afford a home in the first place. That if they do have a home, they can't afford to put food on the table because of high Liberal taxes and inflation. They worry about losing their jobs because of Liberal taxes and temporary foreign worker programs that take jobs away from Canadians. They worry that even if they have a job, a home, and food on the table, that they're not safe in their homes. They worry that their car might be gone from the driveway when they wake up in the morning. Or worse, they worry that they might be awoken at 2 a.m. to the sound of breaking glass and and feet pounding on their living room floor as an invader storms in to steal the family's goods, or worse, harm the family itself.
Now, Pierre Poilievre has a great issue here, because this is something not only Conservative Party voters or small c conservatives, but I would say a vast majority of Canadians will agree with that. Hey, somebody comes into my property, enters my house, breaks into my house, steals my property, threatens my life, threatens the lives of my wife and family or my husband and family. I have the right to eject this person. He or she does not have the right to invade my home. I would hope 90% of Canadians would agree with that, and would not agree with columnists out there who are saying, yeah, we need to put reasonable in there because that's reasonable. That's completely foolish to say that. Let's get back to this.
They worry when they've seen the Toronto police say that it is necessary to leave your keys at the front door to make it easier for criminals to safely steal your car. And they worry when they think about what they might do to protect their family if an intruder ever entered. What do you do if you've got a small child down the hallway and you hear that ominous sound of a home invasion? The answer for any parent is we would do anything necessary to protect our children. But unfortunately, people who've done that have faced the brunt of the law. The system treats, after 10 years of Liberals, the system treats victims like criminals and criminals like victims. Back in 2019, 3 masked intruders, one armed with a sawed-off shotgun, broke into a residence in Collingwood. Cameron Gardner and his girlfriend were tied up. When they finally freed themselves, they struggled with the intruders. The attacker's gun went off twice, striking 2 of the attackers. One escaped. Now, when Cameron saw the police arrive, he was relieved until he found out that they were going to put him in handcuffs. He'd fought for his life. He was courageous. And this is the price he paid. He was in jail for 6 months. He was in a legal process for over 2 years, spending an ungodly fortune on lawyers. And then there's Ali Mian. In February of 2023, the Milton residents and licensed firearms owner awoke to find five intruders who were masked and armed. They came in, broke into his house, carrying weapons, zip ties, and harmed his mother. After using his legal firearm to shoot one of the intruders, he was able to fight them off. But he was arrested. By the way, one of the intruders had a 9mm handgun. And yet, the law went after this innocent man trying to defend his home. He had to post $130,000 in bail for defending his family. After 5 months of hell, the second-degree murder charge was finally dropped by the Crown because they realized there was no reasonable chance of conviction. But it is outrageous that this man had to live through that hell when he should have been focused on recovering from the trauma of fighting off a dangerous criminal. And that is why Conservatives are standing here today, based on the principle that your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law, failing which one of our party's MPs will put forward such a bill. It will amend Section 34.2 of the Criminal Code, which right now says that you can defend yourself based on 9 very complicated and vague conditions. Now look, if you're defending your house, you don't have time to think through 9 different conditions. You have one condition: to protect yourself and your kids. And it is wrong for the law, for the police, and for judges to apply a complicated, indecipherable legal doctrine against you when you were only doing what is right.
Ezra Levant of Rebel News was in the audience, was a journalist at this news conference. Ezra, by the way, and Pierre Poilievre go back, way back, over 22, 23 years. They knew each other very well in Calgary. Tell you that story some other time. But it's nice to see Ezra at these news conferences, because for years Rebel News was excluded from Conservative Party news conferences. So it's nice to see them there. But here's a great question from Ezra Levant about this Stand on Guard law and what could be possibly be done in the meantime.
See that Mark Carney's favorite premier, Doug Ford, has said he's for the castle law, and other provinces like Alberta have said that too. Will you call on Doug Ford not to wait for Carney to reconvene Parliament, but rather to issue a statement that there will be no more prosecutions of homeowners who defend their homes just as a matter of policy? Because right now his prosecutors are going after Jeremy McDonald, whose home was invaded in Lindsay, Ontario.
And those are provincial prosecutors who are doing that? Well, I think that's a great idea. I don't know the legal powers that a premier has to direct the prosecution service, so I would not comment on it. But I would hope prosecutors would stop going after law-abiding people who are defending their property. We need prosecutors to go after criminals. Now, as for their ability to do that, I've never been a Crown prosecutor, so I don't know. We have a Crown prosecutor here, Larry Brock, so maybe he can jump in on this. But I will say this: we need to change the law. Let's make the law clear. Let's bring into place the idea that your home is your castle, so that no prosecutor, judge, or police officer can ever go after someone who is defending their home against an invader who presents a threat.
Okay, so Larry Brock comes in and says exactly what I've been saying all week about this. Doug Ford, you have some leeway here. As Larry Brock, who is the Conservative Party justice critic, points out that provincial judges take their direction from the Attorney General of the province, who reports directly, of course, to the Premier of the province. So Doug Ford can get up and say, oh, it's just horrible how the law is not working for this guy who had a home invasion. And he got charged. It's outrageous. And Ontarians are upset about this. Well, Doug, get off your corpulent butt duff and do something about it. Tell your attorney general to direct the prosecutors not to prosecute these people, to throw these charges out, because it's ridiculous. And you're the one whining and beefing about it just so you can throw some red meat to the base, so you can get your popularity figures just a little bit higher. And God only knows why a premier like Doug Ford, who says Mark Carney's doing a really, really good job, and as Ezra Levant points out, that's Mark Carney's favorite premier is Doug Ford. He's totally in his pocket, just like he was in Justin Trudeau's pocket. So, Doug Ford, you've got the power to do something about this. Do it. That's what I say to you. Now, another great moment from this news conference. What else have I been talking about all month? Identity politics are toxic. Identity politics are bad. Identity politics leads to more people being more equal than others. You know, the old Animal Farm phrase. When we have identity politics, we have 2, 3, 4-tier justice systems. We have differing rights for differing people. We don't have equality under the law. And this is what Pierre Poilievre gets a question here. And somebody suggested that this journalist ruined his career. Well, the journalist, I don't think, is even there asking the question. It's a global news question. And I think somebody's reading it on behalf of David Aiken, because I recognize David Aiken's voice. I work with David Aiken at Sun News. I don't think David Aiken is physically there asking the question. But had he been, I think people would have said, Aiken, I thought you knew better. But here it is.
Question. Global News with a question from David Aiken from our Ottawa Bureau. In the spring election, you did very well with voters in most demographics, but you seem to struggle to win support among older women. Do you have some thoughts on how to address that particular demographic of women 50 plus?
Well, I don't believe in breaking the country down by demographics. I believe in working for every Canadian. Of every age and every gender and every race. I think we have to stop dividing our country into categories. Every Canadian, regardless of their age, should enjoy peace and security in their homes, should be able to afford food when they go to the grocery store, should know that their children and grandchildren will be able to get a job and buy a home. That was the promise of this country. And you know, it is incredible how much that promise has been destroyed after 10 years of Liberals. And the other thing I've noticed is how disappointed people are in Mark Carney. He made such wonderful promises, and I don't blame people who voted for him. He really promised the world. But look what's actually happened. Look how things have changed. Inflation is now rising again. Unemployment is higher than it was under the previous government. We all said that the last prime minister had lost control of spending. But now, under Carney, the deficit is twice as big as the one Trudeau left behind. So it seems that when Mr. Carney promised he'd be different, everything is worse.
I'm going to venture to make a guess here. I think the last half of that answer is conservative talking points, because it's once again, you don't blame people for voting for Mark Carney? Well, that's a little too conciliatory. That's a little too forgiving. I blame people for voting for Mark Carney because they should have known this man was not telling them the truth, and that he was not going to deliver on any of these promises, and that he was going to deliver on the other things he talked about, such as a carbon tariff. That's coming. But Mark Carney never had any intention of this elbows up nonsense with the United States. He used it as a fear tactic to get boomers, older boomers, to vote for him in huge numbers. Of course, he didn't talk about the home equity tax either that's coming. That might be a sore spot for boomers when they hear about that. The first part of his answer, where he talks about identity politics, that's the old Pierre Poilievre. That's the Pierre Poilievre who ran for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada 3 years ago. That's the Pierre Poilievre who's a principled conservative. That's the Pierre Poilievre we didn't always hear from during the election campaign. He was too focused on Donald Trump, too focused on party talking points, listening too closely to his campaign manager. He should have talked this way. Go off script. That was an excellent opportunity to talk about the toxicity of identity politics and the absolute need to have a Canada that's based on equality under the law, with no race-based fishing, hunting, or judicial system. That's an opportunity to say, here's what conservatives believe in. Individual rights, not collective rights. And he did that very well. He didn't say, what a stupid question. Oh, how can you even bring that up? He just calmly turned it around so that you've got people thinking, yeah, that was a stupid question. Why are the journalists, why is the media obsessed with demographics or identity politics? Sounds like Pierre Poilievre isn't. He seems to believe in equality under the law. Very, very good moment. Now, when we come back, I'm going to show you one more good moment from this news conference and why I think Pierre Poilievre realizes he's not running for prime minister right now. He's running to save his leadership at the leadership review next February. And he needs to convince rank and file conservative voters and members that he's still up to the job. Yes, and thank you, Tamara Leach, for modeling that bit of merchandise there. And that reminded me when I saw that picture of Tamara. It's Labor Day, right? This Monday. Do you remember 2 years ago? The Freedom Convoy trial with Tamara Leach and Chris Barber on trial started 2 years ago, next month. 2 years, and they're still waiting for sentencing that's not going to happen till October. We'll be there covering that. But incredible, the longest mischief trial in Canadian history, possibly world history, and they're still at it, still waiting for a verdict, which, don't get me started, a verdict that could be 8 years for Chris and 7 years in jail for Tamara. Outrageous. And thank God Pierre Poilievre spoke out against that, because he waited far too long to do so. And it amazes me, there were liberals out there saying, how dare he question the Crown prosecutors? How dare he question the Ontario Crown? That's his job as official opposition leader. Because believe me, the Ontario provincial government is an appendage of the Mark Carney Liberals at times. In fact, most times. So here's Pierre Poilievre again speaking directly to grassroots conservatives about an issue that's important to them: immigration. Because I know every time I get comments from people who really don't like Pierre Poilievre and who are insistent that he's just another liberal, I hear about mass migration. I hear about Poilievre not getting tough enough on immigration. He's been talking about that a lot lately. Now, whether or not he keeps talking about that when he secured his leadership, I'm not going to hazard a guess. I hope so. But he's talking about it right now because this is an issue that grassroots conservatives care deeply about. And here he is addressing it.
Outrageous. It is ridiculous that in our liberal justice system, someone gets a lower conviction simply because they came from another country. And that is why Michelle Rempel, conservative immigration critic, is introducing a law that will ban judges from giving sentencing discounts to people on the basis of their immigration status. Frankly, anyone who is visiting our country from abroad and applying for immigration who commits a crime should be deported from our country.
So you're telling me they're not? Yes, and this is what makes this so crazy. When you listen to this, just like you listen to the other comments made about castle law and the other problems Pierre Poilievre talks about at this news conference, you think, has Canada really gone that crazy that we reward people coming to this country, non-citizens, by going lighter on them when they commit a crime? We not only don't deport them, we judge them on a whole different set of criteria, and it's to their benefit. Canada has gone mad in so many ways under Trudeau and under Carney. Carney is perpetuating the madness initiated by Justin Trudeau. Carney is perpetuating and escalating the bad habits of Justin Trudeau, including deficit spending and woke politics and green energy policies. He just doesn't look like Justin Trudeau, and he doesn't advertise the color of his socks. But he is worse than Justin Trudeau. And Pierre Poilievre mentioned this earlier in the week as well. He said, Mark Carney's worse. Why is he worse? Because he's smarter. And he has a very definite agenda, and he's moving towards that agenda in a methodical way. Unlike Justin Trudeau, who was not methodical, who could be very erratic at times, very divisive, very polarizing, and never understood that sometimes it's the soft sell that pushes through woke policies. Because when people actually look at these woke policies, they say, that's crazy. And that's what happened with Cracker Barrel this week in the United States. We need that sort of momentum. We need that sort of pushback in Canada to say, let's look at these policies in an honest, transparent manner. Let's assess these policies in the broad light of day. And let's say, no, these are toxic policies. These are policies that are destroying the country, and they make no sense. Why aren't we deporting non-citizens who commit crimes? Why are we giving them lighter sentences? Why? Why are we prosecuting homeowners who defend their property rights, who defend their families? Why are we prosecuting these people in Canada? Why do we have some stupid laws on the books? Why aren't we changing them? And this was Pierre Poilievre's message yesterday. And I'll say it again. Yes, he's speaking to the grassroots. He's speaking to that conservative voter who has to decide in February whether Pierre Poilievre should stay on as leader. As I've said 100 times, if I've said it once, I don't know who's waiting in the wings that could possibly replace Pierre Poilievre right now. They've got some great rookie MPs, but rookie MPs don't become the leader of the Conservative Party. It just doesn't happen. What we need to do is ensure that Pierre Poilievre stays on a principled conservative course. And that means when he strays from that course, we have to criticize it. This is why I'm not a propagandist. This is why I'm praising Pierre Poilievre today, because he said something that was very good. And he acted like a principled conservative. And when he does that, I'm going to say, good job, because that's what we need. An alternative to Mark Carney, a different party than light liberal. We need a really conservative alternative in this country. And this is what Pierre Poilievre needs to offer Canadians. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a great Saturday. And I hope you have a great weekend. And I'll be back again tomorrow morning at 9:30, half hour earlier because of church, to talk about the issues that matter to you. And let's continue to resolve to resist. Let's continue to fight back on toxic Carney policies. I've been broadcasting to you live from Ottawa. This is David Krayden bidding you goodbye for now, and we'll see you tomorrow.